Hello chess friends and welcome to Yazadov Chess channel and welcome to really one of the most incredible chess games that I've seen in my life. Welcome to a crazy gameplay by Leela C Zero against another top engine, Berserk, in a crazy Grob opening. You heard me right, we'll see now Leela C Zero playing the first move G4 in move 1. So we see now one of the most irregular openings, the Grob opening, one of the worst openings that you can play. I'm not suggesting you to play the first move G4 in the beginning, but in the TCEC organized recently a tournament where all of the engines had to play the Grob opening, and believe me or not, Leela C Zero finished on the first place. Leela C Zero had even 1 point more than Stockfish. Basically, the tournament went like this. Many games, of course, were won by Black because the Grob opening in the beginning is really a bad opening, and many times the game also ended with a draw, but with no winning games by White. The only winning game by White is this one that I'm going to show you. As I said, Leela C Zero versus Berserk, in which you see one of the most incredible chess endgames of all times. Even the Stockfish engine didn't calculate this endgame in a proper way, I think, because there are some differences between Leela C Zero and Stockfish. Stockfish is, of course, the tactical beast. The tactical calculations that Stockfish can do are beyond our imagination, but when it comes to pure positional understanding, I still think that Leela C Zero is a little bit better, because Leela C Zero understands better the basic concepts of chess. So the basic concepts of chess are something like, I don't know, strategic advantages, strategic disadvantages, also piece activity. And in this particular endgame that I'll show you in the end, you see also how Leela C Zero manages to lock out one particular piece, and the Stockfish engine still thinks that Black should be fine, but actually Leela C Zero, I think, calculated the position in a better way. So in my opinion, a very epic chess game. Put your seatbelts on. We'll see now the amazing Grob opening. So the first move, as promised, G4 by Leela C Zero. Very bad opening. So we have now D5, we have C4, the standard line, bishop to G4, and now we have the so-called Fritz Gambit after move bishop to G2. Leela C Zero lost the pawn, but of course relies on some tactics, putting more pressure against the pawn on D5, putting also more pressure against the weak B7 pawn. We have now the move C6, fixing the structure. Now comes this idea, queen to B3. We have now the move E6, and Black should do what Berserk is doing so far, should give up the pawn here. Nothing wrong with this move. The queen got the pawn back, but the queen gets a little bit exposed, becomes, of course, now an object of Black's attack. We have knight to D7. You can even leave the C6 pawn unprotected, because after something like queen to C6, you can, of course, kick away the queen. Now you play rook to C4, and I think Black should be much better. Look at this. The structure in front of White's king is messed up. And for instance, I see one game in the database in which Black won the game in this particular line, so not a good continuation here anymore for White. So that's why Leela C Zero played knight to C3, didn't play queen takes C6. We have knight to E7, C takes D5, and now E takes D5. At least something gained here for Leela, at least keeping this structure a little bit messed up, because many of us would love to play now the move C takes D5, but C takes D5 is a bad line actually for Black. Now White should be winning after knight to B5. That's why it's very important to keep your C pawn here on C6. That's why after knight to C5 we can play something like knight to D6, and now we grab the rook, and here actually White should be much better. So that's why after C takes D5 you have to play E takes D5. D4 by Leela, rook to B8, kicking away the queen, queen drops back. Of course, as I said, Black is gaining extra time, extra tempi against the queen, develops in a fast way, because the queen got a little bit exposed when it took the pawn on B7. Knight to G6, normal development, H3, bishop to E6, knight to F3, and you see Black plays simply on normal development. The material is equal, but White has a tough time where to castle, because you don't have anymore the G pawn, and there are many weaknesses, of course, that that Black could attack. Here we have H4. Leela C Zero is saying, I'm not going to castle anymore. It's risky because of the structural disadvantages. We have now the move H5 by Berserk. We have a knight to G5, bishop to G4, F3 here by Leela, kicking away the bishop, and now Berserk plays, I think, also good move, knight takes H4. We have F takes G4, Berserk takes out now here the bishop on G2, Leela drop back to D1, and now knight to F4. Rerouting the knight on a good square, basically forcing now, again, a reaction here by by white. We have Queen to F5, protecting also the knight on G5. Queen to F6. Berserk is going now into the fully endgame stage because Berserk is saying, I got the pawn, I got a better structure, I got also a better piece activity, so nothing wrong with going here into an endgame. Also, the rook is very active on the b file. You cannot develop the dark square bishop. You lose the b2 pawn. There are some opportunities to maybe break and enter afterwards with c5 and similar stuff. So not a pleasant game, I think, again here to play with white. But Leela is battling, as I said. Leela is struggling here. Leela is trying to do at least something out of this position. We have king to c2, knight to g6, bishop to d2. We have queen takes f5, g takes f5. And here black has an advantage, has also now a passer on the h file, has also a 3 versus 1 situation. What black is trying to do, of course, is somehow to advance the pawn to g5 and connect 2 mobile pawns on the king side, and then this should be, of course, a fully winning endgame here for black. Knight to e7 played by Berserk. We have e4, good move by Leela, protecting so far the f5 pawn. f6, knight to e6, hitting now this pawn on g7. Berserk has to protect it, and now Leela goes for the g7 pawn. Rook to g8, we have rook to h1, attacking now this one. Berserk continues, of course, with d takes e4, wants undermine the defense of the f5 pawn. We have knight takes e4, knight takes f5, the knight on e6 is hanging, knight takes d6, and now, of course, knight takes d6. But all of this tactics actually were Leela C Zero's idea to get the knight on c5. Great move here by Leela, because of course you cannot take knight to c5. D takes c5 is a fork against both of these pieces on b6 and d6. So still, it seems so that this should be completely winning endgame for black. And I would always love to play still this position with the black pieces, because now of this 3 connected pass pawns on the king side. So as I said, really a wild game. So we have now knight to b8 by Berserk. Leela C Zero continues with rook to h5, takes out now this one, but still there are still 2 connected passers, still a risky position here for white. Knight to a6, going for the c5 pawn, but as we said, you cannot still take it because of d takes c5. Knight takes a6 by Leela, rook takes a6, a4. We have now king to g6, and now rook to c5, putting more pressure also against the pawn on c6. We have now knight to e4, and now a brilliant move by Leela C Zero, a5. And Stockfish says here that this is perfectly fine. This is still a better position for black. Here, Berserk goes with knight to c5, d takes c5, and actually what Leela C Zero managed to do with this particular line is to lock the rook on a6. And Stockfish also, my Stockfish engine at home, suggests that you should play the game like this with the black pieces. But Leela C Zero, as I said, is a more strategic, I think, chess engine than Stockfish. When it comes to maybe pure calculation and piece activity and evaluations, of course, we think that this could be a winning position. But when you really understand this position, it's almost like black is playing now without the whole rook. It's almost like white has an extra bishop here. So that's how we should actually evaluate this position. Still, nothing is ending here, but look how brilliant Leela C Zero is playing now this particular end. We have king to f5, we have rook to f1, hitting the king, bishop to c3, we have rook to d8, b4, fully locking out now here the rook on a6, king to f7, rook to f3, rook to d5, rook to f2. We have now a couple tiny little improvements in the position, but now rook to g3, going for the g7 pawn, king to f7, rook to d3, king to e8, and now Leela C Zero manages to even trade off the rooks. Again, the Stockfish engine at home evaluates this position as a 1.6 in black's favor. So Stockfish is saying this should be still a winning position here for black. But look what Leela is doing. King to d3, and now comes already a critical moment in the game. Berserk probably calculated that it could get a draw with this move, g6. In the beginning, it seems, okay, dude, what you're doing? Why should you give up the pawn on f6? But let's see now also different options. If you play here king to e6 immediately, then white is going, of course, here to c4. You're trying maybe to get the king on f5. This wasn't playing in the game, but I want to show you how still Black has a tough time on the king side. You're trying maybe bishop to b2. You're trying to push the pawn. White is simply waiting. We get now finally the king towards the center. And now after move f5, we get the king to d4. You push the pawn further. Here we have to, of course, control the g1 square. And now black is trying to get the king here and is hoping, of course, to push the pawns to get the king on g3 and then to push the pawn on f2. But now after king to e3, you could maybe push the pawn. You could also push the pawn on f5, but in one moment you have to step back from the defense of the pawn on f3, and we'll simply take it. And then afterwards, this one is lost. We will simply go for the c6 pawn and game over. I would say here for black, because black is still locked here with his rook, and this is not an option anymore to win this game. So after move g6, as I said, it seems in the beginning that this should be a bad move, but Berserk had really here a beautiful idea in mind, which Leela C Zero calculated in a proper way. After bishop to f6, Berserk wants to get an extra tempo, wants now to get the king on d5, and now after bishop to e3, Berserk plays the brilliant g5. You cannot take. Look at this. Bishop to g5 is actually a draw. That was Berserk's idea. I'm not saying maybe that Berserk should not have played the game in a different way. But after bishop to g5, it's a draw, because after rook to a5, b takes a5, king to c5, we have now the wrong bishop position. Black can even give up now both of these pawns, the c6 pawn, but also the a7 pawn, and this is a thematic draw. White cannot win this game in this particular setup. So if you could just imagine the position now without even these pawns, black will simply corner the king on a8, and it's still a thematic draw. Also something to consider in this particular endgame. So g5, with this f6 method, giving up a pawn, Berserk managed to somehow advance the pawn. But let's see now how Leela C Zero is battling. Bishop to d4, g4, bishop to f2. We have bishop to g1, king to d5, bishop to d4. Leela is waiting here the pawn to get closer. We have bishop to e3, king to e5, bishop to g1, king to f5, king to d4. Leela C Zero is getting, of course, the king closer. We have now king to f4, bishop to e3. We have king to f5, bishop to d2, and now king to e6. Now, finally, Stockfish says this should be winning here for white. Stockfish suggests that you should play king to g4. But believe me, even after king to g4, this is still a losing position for black. Look at this. After king to e4, king to h3, king to f3, you can maybe push the pawn, and you can maybe get even the king to h2. But now the fun starts. We play king to e4. You, of course, play g1, the promotion, and basically the problem is now that black's king is simply far away from the action. We will take the rook, and now you should not take one of those pawns. You should just play here after king to b4, king to b7. You should now take out this one. You play a6, king to b7, a7, a8, and white is actually faster. White will simply win this endgame for sure. So you see here after move bishop to d2 and king to e6, Leela C Zero got the king closer, played now bishop to e3. Now black is basically forced to make a move. Leela C Zero follows first of all with the king, plays into the opposition. He's trying to get the opposition. We have king to e7. Leela plays a Qxb7, so forcing now black to react. We have king to d7, king to f6. And now Leela C Zero gets closer, king to e8, king to d6. Black is going into an opposition. Leela C Zero again waits, gets the king closer, and now after a couple more moves, look at this. Bishop to h2, king to c8, king to e8. Black has to play now g1, or black can play also now something like king to b7. But again, we get the king closer. You're trying to do this. Now after king to c7, you're trying to promote, because there's simply no better move. We simply take. It's not a stalemate, of course, because still you can take here the rook, the pawn with the rook. Now we take, and still it's not a stalemate because you have an extra move. And now after king to c6, again, this is completely winning. This is not, of course, now a wrong bishop position, because we have still the passer on the c file. After king to e8, g1 was played by Leela. We have king to b8, king to d7. Again, a Qxb7 forcing a reaction. Leela C Zero takes b5, good move. Even if you take this one, of course, here, then this one is rolling. Game over here for black. B takes e5, Leela C Zero promoted to queen, got the queen closer, got also the bishop closer, took the pawn, and after queen to a3, it was a beautiful checkmate here by Leela C Zero. So, incredible game. in top AI chess to win with the white pieces in the Grob opening. This was really, I think, a spectacular endgame. Beautiful idea to lock the rook and then go into the fully endgame stage with the bishop battling it out against these two pawns. I think really one of the most spectacular chess endgames that I've seen in my life. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Not so often that we see the Grob opening, but not so often also that we see such a spectacular chess endgame. Really an amazing game for sure. So if you want to see more AI chess here on my YouTube chess channel, check out our commented chess games played by computers. Here's the link of the playlist, and if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.